zijn. Ik heb een andere voorbereiding gehad. Ik ben pas vader geworden van een tweeling. Dus
proficiat.
Okay. Dus ja, die mensen die weten wat dat is thuis. Het is wel druk, maar ik hoop nog hierdoor vorm op te kunnen bouwen naar Paris dan echt te staan.
Donas en Nico Dens.
Als je dan zo hoort al die slecht is, dan voel ik me echt oké. Perhaps it's still good to weather today.
Yeah, maybe we'll see how the legs are, and obviously the time is important. Go from there.
Vrij gestileerd gezelschap moet ik zeggen. Helm is al op, de leunt ook al klaar en Sint van Marken met de glimlach. Goeiedag, hoe is het met het dochtertje?
Goed. Ze bleef thuis vandaag. Bij de grootouders kijken naar tv.
Jelle Walleyes. Fantastische line-up van Lotto Soudal. Matteo Trentin en Julien Vermoda. Quick Step Force.
Dat is heel goed gemaakt.
Een maat van u?
Dat is al heel lang de maat van mij. Ja. Hij heeft vroeger Offshore Settlers gehad, een metalgroep. Dat was een heel goed, maar dat is nooit niet bekend geweest. Dat is nog niet in België. En nu wordt hij met zo'n nummer te lachen en dat lanceert een lekker raket.
Ik vind die vrouwen van de Stubru ook fantastisch.
Ja, dat is mooi.
Een keuze al gemaakt.
Free breakfast though.
In Gent, daar staan ze met een minuut stilte voor onder meer Jean Bogaerts, voor Serge Baguet, 2 weken geleden helaas veel te vroeg overleden op 47-jarige leeftijd. En ook voor André Vlaaien, tweevoudig Belgisch kampioen in 56 en 57. Maandag op...
10 seconden zometeen mee aftellen. En dan zijn we dus bijna aan toe. Voor wat deze Omloop het Nieuwsblad editie 2017 betreft. Schepen toppas, hou je klaar. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dames en heren, deze start officieel gegeven aan de Omloop het Nieuwsblad 2017. De Belgische openingsklassieker waarvoor de renners zich op dit ogenblik in beweging zetten. Geef ze nog een aanmoedigingsapplausje mee.
Ja, hier moet ik.
We krijgen zo meteen nog een tweede start, want we hebben...
zit. En dat is nog altijd Peter van Petegem onder het viaduct van Ledenberg. Op zoek naar Merelbeke voor die op.
Which is charging along. And indeed we've got Adam Blythe there as well. Aqua Blue have got an invite. Let's watch out for Alexander Christoph, who's always to the fore in these early season Belgian classics, chasing the record of Peter van Petegem, who is of course the one of 3 riders that have won this race on 3 occasions. And the
Allez Florian, allez, allez Cyril. Tom. Où Marc, j'ai pas vu. Hi Marco! Doe maar dit, doe niet als vallen. Ja, het is een keer dat begint. Dat is niet goed. Instagram, ja. Ah Julien!
Kom niet 30, hè? Brandmassa. En nog weer een borg aan Kemman. Heel van ja.
Dat waren Gediminas Bagdonas van AG2R en Justin Jules van Veran Classic. En hier zien we een aansluiting van 4 renners met daarbij onze landgenoot Preben van Hekke, ex-Belgisch kampioen van Sport Vlaanderen Baloise. We hebben Lee Howard ook van Aquablue, Mike Teunissen van Sunweb en Brian van Goethem van Roompot. Hun voorsprong is ondertussen opgelopen tot om en bij de 5 minuten. 4:45 om exact te zijn, maar dat was 2 kilometer geleden. En als in het peloton niet wordt gereden, dan weet je dat zij nog iets verder zijn weggereden ondertussen. Dus om en bij de 5 minuten voor deze 6 man in de 72e editie van de Omloop, het Nieuwsblad.
Kom op, Mike! Kom op, Mike!
Dat is patat, weet je.
Welkom in de koers, dames en heren. Op 88 kilometer van het einde rijden er 6 voorop. Mike Teunissen is erbij. Wie is er nog bij? Wel, er is 1 landgenoot bij, dat is Van Hekke. We zien Van Goethem uit het beeld verdwijnen. En dan hebben we hier het nummer 171. We hebben dus ook nog naast Teunissen en Van Goethem Howard, Van Hekke, Justin Jules en Gediminas Bagdonas. Die 6 die hebben een voorsprong van 6 minuten en 22 seconden.
Ja, daar, hè.
Gijs zit op kop.
Ja, zeker wel, hè. Ja, Kees, ja. Rudolf, hij had hem. Dank.
Van Kent Biermans. Eerstejaarsprof voor Katusha. Dus een boerenzoon. Een met karakter, ijzeren karakter. En een heel naarse jongen. Dus hij staat bij de grond. Hij weet van wat hem komt. Geen oogwaanzin. 2 jaar achtereen bij de belofte. Tweede op Parijs-Roubaix. Dus er zit toekomst in de jongen. Het klinkt als muziek in de oren. Dus laten we hopen dat het gaat worden. En dat we een nieuwe tamboren gaan zijn.
Ja, zo'n trainer van de week van Stuiven, dat zo moet meer zijn dan kuren, Brussel kuren.
Ja, die zaten in alle grote koersen in de 5 eerste, maar dat is ook niet worden.
Stuiven, ja, dat wordt.
Truls bedoeld, die moet dat bewijzen.
Er zou nog sprake zijn van een Canadees Boivin die daar ergens tussen hangt. Maar dat is de jongste minuten niet meer bevestigd. Dus ik ga ervan uit dat de Canadees Boivin besloten heeft om zich toch maar laten in te lopen. Dat lijkt me ook verstandig. Hij bleef bengelen op een goede 3 à 4 minuten. We draaien neer de Haaghoek in. En dan hebben de mannen van Katusha zich op kop gezet. Katusha Alpecin moeten we nu zeggen. U kent deze Haaghoek. Je zou de Omloop het Nieuwsblad ook kunnen bestempelen als de ronde van de Haaghoek. Want die ligt er niet minder dan 3 keer in. Dit is dus rijden voor Christophe. Al zeggen ze bij Karel, we gaan ervan uit dat Martin uitgespeeld wordt. Martin had vorig jaar wat last met het nemen van de bochtjes en ging tegen de grond. Daar komt hij over gespiepen, José.
Ja, inderdaad. Tony Martin helemaal op links. En op kop zien we de jongeling uit de ploeg van Katusha, Alpecin, Jente Biermans. Die er eigenlijk aan zijn eerste belangrijke wedstrijd bij de profs begint. Trouwens hier vergezeld van een hele grote supportersclub. Allemaal met een petje op van een of andere ijsboerkenfabrikant uit de regio. Jente Biermans.
Opgelet, het stropt daar. Het is en blijft de Omloop het Nieuwsblad. Dus de eerste confrontatie met het kasseiwerken bij herhaling. En daar zitten toch wel een pak jongens in die niet de minste ervaring hebben met kassei. Ik heb er vanochtend toch wel een pak gesproken die hier voor het eerst aan de start komen. En dan krijg je dit soort herrie. Het is niet de eerste val. Hier hebben we weer een stuk of 2, 3 jongens die tegen de grond gegaan zijn. En is het moeilijk om weer snel te hervatten. Bewley. Is dat de bakker die daar tegen de grond... Nee, dat lijkt me niet de bakker. In elk geval iemand van zijn ploeg, van de ploeg van Sunweb. Al tegen de grond gegaan. Kuznetsov, de tweede van Gent-Wevelgem van vorig jaar. Die is uit de wedstrijd gestapt. Tom Boon, jammer genoeg, dat hebt u meegekregen. Dries de Bond van Verandas Willems zagen we ook tegen de grond gaan. Hij stond weer recht. En Spengler, dat is een Zwitser, die is met een sleutelbeenbreuk uit de wedstrijd verdwenen.
Ik zal u hier een tip geven.
Ja, het is draaien, keren, het is altijd wel iets. Het is een van die Vlaamse koersen waar je eigenlijk eenmaal gestart voor de volgende 5 uur, in dit geval voor de volgende 5 uur in koers zit. Altijd kijken, altijd bezig zijn, waar rijden die motoren naartoe. Als je niet enger bent, zal ik maar zeggen, een hele moeilijke koerssituatie.
We gaan eens vooraan de manschappen bekijken. Op de kaperij. Ik ben ervan overtuigd dat deze Omloop het Nieuwsblad na de Ronde van Vlaanderen de zwaarste koers in Vlaanderen is. Ook vanwege de plaats op de kalender. Ze komen allemaal van zonnige streken. Ze zijn wel degelijk goed gerodeerd. Want je ziet ook dat de grote daar gaan winnen. In het zuiden of in het Midden-Oosten of in Australië. Maar dan kom je toch hier in een totaal ander klimaat, in een totaal andere omgeving, andere koersomstandigheden terecht. En dat is een...
Maar wat ik dan tegelijkertijd wel nog vaststellen is hoe er nu geregeld wordt, of hoe het verkeer geregeld wordt met die vele
Moeten ze zijn.
Is er weer iemand tegen de vlakte gegaan? Daar, inderdaad, rechts in beeld. En dat gaat in 2 keer. En de rest kan hem ontwijken, maar hij is wel tegen de grond gekwast.
Gregory Rast met materiaalproblemen na die jongen van Cannondale die daar lag te kermen van de pijn. Maar ik heb niet kunnen zien wie het was.
Dit zou Dempster kunnen zijn. Zachary Dempster. En die heeft zich wel degelijk zwaar bezeerd. Het was ook een fel...
Deze Canadese toch? Hey, come on!
Jen, en?
Goh ja, het is ja, langs de ene kant zou je zeggen het is jammer, want het is ook nog niet echt gemaakt, moet ik zeggen. Het is zo'n beetje een reparatie, zoiets. Ja, we gaan links en rechts een beetje, zelfs een strook dwars over de weg van 15, 20 meter.
Oh, Julien nu wel.
Het is ook nog 78,5 kilometer. André Grifko is een man van nagenoeg alle terreinen. Er komt een reactie vanuit het kamp van Age de Zet.
Ja, je ziet ook weer die man hier staan, helemaal rechts in beeld daar. Dat peloton moet dan weer splitsen. Je bent, zoals ik net al zei, continu bezig om te zorgen dat je niet in die spleten daar te midden terecht komt. Renaat heeft daar een geweldig woord voor. Weerom. En dan, ja... Dus dat vraagt echt wel, terwijl wie, denk ik, bovijns ingelopen worden.
Ik denk dat
of dat Grifko is. Ja, dat
ja.
Grifko, ja.
Die gaat gezelschap krijgen van die man van Age de Zet. En dan komt er nog eentje van die andere Franse ploeg naartoe gekletst van Directe Energie. Dus vaak zo, als de Fransen zien dat een van de andere Franse ploegen in de weer is, dan schieten ze ook wakker. Maar goed, ze willen zich onderscheiden op Vlaamse wegen. Het is ooit anders geweest.
Ja, dat zijn mannen die proberen om voor het grote werk voorsprong te kunnen krijgen. In die manier, op die wijze proberen van mee te zijn. Hè. Maar dat gaat niet makkelijk voor de man van Directe Energie. Ze wachten er niet op.
Astana. Nog één. Kom op, Grifko.
En wat levert dat dan op? Want je mag je eraan verwachten dat grote ploegen straks hun kanonnen gaan in stelling brengen. Zeker richting...
Ja, daar zijn we.
Koers daar uiteraard, ja.
Roger, 212. Dat moet straks, kijk, straks. Kan zien, hè.
Ja, inderdaad. En het gebeurde net op het moment dat Jens de Bussere terugkwam in het peloton na een zogenaamde besoin naturel. Dus dit illustreert ook dat in deze fase van de wedstrijd dat je nog eigenlijk tijd kan nemen voor dingen die hoog nodig moeten.
Ik vraag me altijd af, Michel.
Zico Whitens die zich boos maakt en terecht, want die was aangeduid als een van de 3 kopmannen in de ploeg van de Sunweb.
Samen met Marco Colledan van Trek Segafredo.
Dat is de ploeg van Jasper Stuyven en Edward Teuns.
Bussere. Goed daar. Lekker band bezig.
10 other cobbled sectors which are set to really test and challenge the riders. Riders have already faced several challenges. I can tell you we're picking up live pictures now. Just over 71 kilometers remaining of the 198 kilometers of racing today. And Lotto Soudal, who they've struggled to get good results in this race of late. So for Frederik Frisson, and indeed Jurgen Roelandts, one of the pre-event favourites, he is being shepherded back to the bunch by Frisson and the Lotto car. Trek have belief that they can do something. Jesper Stuyven, of course, is in fine form, and here is one of the other pre-event favourites, because Dylan Groenewegen is in great sprint form. Takes a bike from the Lotto NL Jumbo. They've got options, of course. Lars Boom is with Lotto NL Jumbo, back with the home team. And Dylan Groenewegen will believe that if he gets to the line. In a small group or even a large one, that he's one of the riders that would be a pre-event favourite. There is the master bunch. 5 minutes and 39 seconds is the delay to these riders. 6 riders. Took a while for the break really to establish itself. Gediminas Bagdonas sitting third in line here for AG Tour Le Mondial. The Lithuanian rider was the one that really kicked things off. And indeed the rider sitting at the front of the group, Justin Jules from France, has shown great intent as well. Those 2 riders joined by 4 others to make it 6 up front, a sextet, and they have managed to eke out some maximum advantage. 6 3/4 minutes at one stage towards the back of the group. He's been one of the stronger riders so far through the various cobble sections of Pave. Mike Teunissen for the Netherlands, the 24-year-old, starting to feel the pinch. Is he a little bit also in there? Just in front of him Lee Howard, the Australian, with the new pro-continental outfit from Ireland. That's Aqua Blue. Team Aqua Blue got an invite to this one and have honoured that by putting a rider in the breakaways. They've done in pretty much every race they've attended so far. Brian Van Goghem has really struggled to hold his place at the front of the group, and he's starting to drift back towards the back. The man from Team Rumpot, the young Dutchman with the Dutch squad. And Van Goghem, the 25-year-old, on the right-hand side with the orange, white and black jersey. He's nodding away as he tries to maintain a position towards the front. It's the start of Classic season. It's the start of a weekend of Classic races. Curran, Brussels, Curran traditionally makes up a twin set with the Het Volk as it was once upon a time. Now, of course, Het Nieuwsblad, since the amalgamation or the merger of those two newspapers a few years ago, and Het Nieuwsblad, well, they had the glory and the honour of being able to rename their rivals' race. Nonetheless, it remains one of the Premier Classics fights throughout the next month. Really kicks things off, and I think we're going to see plenty of hectic action. Look at the way the elbows are starting to stick out. Riders starting to lean down over the bars. The familiar form of Niels Pollitt in the centre of picture 14. Katusha, he'll be looking after Tony Martin sitting in his wheel, and they've got Alexander Kristoff. So Team Katusha boosted their lineup, and Team Sky on the left-hand side of picture, albeit briefly now, over on the right-hand side of the road, as you see, have bossed the peloton through much of the early running up the Moor van Gerardsbergen, but you sense that, well, with still just a little bit under 70 kilometers remaining, it's starting to get just that little bit busier, and that gap to the front riders is starting to come down. Belgium have dominated this race. Het Nieuwsblad for 2017. This is a chase group of three trying to chase down the 6 riders up front. Andrei Grivko Man from Astana sitting third in line. Here's the man who kicked this one off. Clearly not satisfied with the pace of the bunch and trying to change the tactical order of things. But Magnus, interesting idea for these three riders to try and clip off the front of the bunch.
Yeah, it certainly is, and especially with such a long way to go, and the time gap still being fairly big. So I think they're probably just trying to put a bit of pressure on the peloton, see if we can create a bit more action in the bunch, and with that potentially open up further groups to try and bridge across here. Certainly with the wind that we have today, as you can see, the riders are sort of panning out from right to left on the road, and there is an awful lot of crosswind to be done on the way back in towards Ghent today. So this could be the start of the racing, and certainly with 65 kilometers to go, I think that is very much going to be the case. So certainly an awful lot of, I said, climbs and cobblestones left to come in today's race.
Preben van Heck towards the back of the group here, number 157. With the Sport Vlaanderen squad. He's not quite a one-team man, but he's been with this team quite a long time. And of course, the national champion of Belgium in 2015. He's not in the first flush of youth, 34 years of age now, the elder statesman of this group. Inevitably, a few incidents. There have been plenty of incidents already, and riders coming to grief. The Française de Jeux squad have Jacobin Garnieri in their lineup. He'll struggle to get back to that bunch the way they're charging along at the moment. Maybe Conor Dunn at the back of this group. Let's try and pick up this little incident as the bunch is lined out.
Just going to cut that corner a bit tight and come off effectively. It's racing is not just dealing with the crosswinds and the cobblestones, it's understanding the roads and the surfaces, and as you can see, this line down the middle of the road as well between the concrete slabs that you have as roads in Belgium. It's one of those things that you have to every year kind of readjust yourself to, and making sure that you don't get caught in the middle of the bunch and sort of bunny hop in between the two sides of concrete effectively. And a lot of the time it's a very stressful way of racing, and you see that's why a lot of the big teams and the big names are up here now. They're trying to find that feel and understanding the calm and you know, how to get calm in this kind of a bunch. So yeah, it's certainly a very important race today.
Yeah, this is the pattern, isn't it? And this is what we're going to see quite a lot of in the next 30-40 kilometers before the elastic snaps for good. Might even happen a little bit earlier than that, the way things are going at the moment. Here's the back of the peloton, and there is a big split in the peloton. For BMC, well, they want to get a bit of a move on. They were not exactly, Fran Ventosa wasn't too pleased with the pace that they were taking some of the earlier bergs. And he went to the front just shaking his head because they were backing it up, causing all sorts of concertina effects and using the riders behind to stall. Two French teams, of course, involved in that little fracas. The Direct Energy squad have Brian Cocard, who can sprint. Arnaud Demar can sprint as well. And they get to the finish as part of the group and put themselves into the frame to take a first ever French victory in this race. Well, the BMC squad know all about winning this race. Greg van Avermaet, the reigning champion. Can he do it again? Is it too much to ask? What's his form going to be like? Having done it already, of course, it would be a great victory and it would be something that he'd really want. But is he going to try and save his form and try and put something together a little bit towards the back end of the Classics campaign? Managing your form across the next month is a real challenge. There's lots of racing days, lots of really hard, intense racing, and yet by the same token, a lot of riders will have come into this with not quite top form because they're
Here at Volko in top form, it's very difficult to hold that until big crash there, big crash.
Yeah, there you have it. Well, that is a massive pileup. Look, there's bodies on bodies on bodies there, and I'm not sure how many riders are injured. I see one of the Cofidis riders on the right-hand side of the picture. Looks like he's none too happy. BMC at the bottom of the pile. as well, the riders are picking themselves up as quickly as they can, and this inevitably is what happens for those that were chasing from behind. They were absolutely flat chat. Now the domestiques, of course, are going to get involved here, try and see if they've got a team leader up front, and if they need to try and look after him. Boris Hertz is one of the riders, and just trying to disentangle themselves as Christophe Prémont from Verandas Willems finds himself in big difficulty.
That bike there wasn't going to go much further, I can tell you that. There was no rear chainstays left on that bike. But this is part of what happens on the cobblestones. You've got to enter any cobblestone section in the top 15-20 riders to stay reasonably safe. Bonin is down as well. Pre-race favourite is down.
Well, it's the second time today, I can tell you. Tom Bonin actually was just delayed slightly, but this is just a little bit of added irritation. His final ever Het Nieuwsblad. He's never won this race. It's the only significant classic race that he's yet to add to his palmarès. He is fit. He has come into the classic season.
Christophe is down as well.
And Alexander Christophe as well, one of the pre-race favourites. He doesn't look too happy, does he? He looks as if he's in a situation where he's going to be able to get back on his bike, but a little bit dazed and confused there for a moment. And that is Brian Coquart as well for Direct Energy. Is looks like he's looking for some technical assistance. What's going to happen up front? Which teams are going to try and take advantage of this, and which teams will be trying to put the brakes on to try and make sure that these riders get back in? Because their riders at 6s and 7s, so many problems. One wonders how many of these riders are actually going to be able to get back into contention. Let's have a quick look. It happened almost at the front. Riders who are trying to stay as close to the front as possible, make sure they're as safe as possible.
Touch of wheels right at the very, very front of the race, and that's inevitable. Then it's certainly on the cobblestones. There's not much you can do about it. It's you're a passenger going into the pilot.
It can't be much more than 20 riders that missed out on that one there, so it just shows you. It wasn't exactly pleasant, was it? Christophe Prémont is being admonished somewhat for sitting on the bike. Marc Fournier got to get on with it. And all that activity at the front, and as I say, it was only about can't be much more than 20-25 riders at most have managed to survive that one. The peloton, the gap to the peloton is showing at 3 minutes and 13 seconds. I wonder if that's not the gap to the second group on the road.
Well, I think that's the could potentially be the second group on the road there, the trio that's up there, but nevertheless, it's the pace is up now. The chase is really starting to happen, and you can see why everyone is now trying to get to the front, going into the cobblestone sections, and with that we have that sort of the nervous energy in the bunch as well, which is when sometimes you end up with these big crashes. But this is certainly not very good for Tom Bonin here.
Yeah, hits another section of combles, and for Bonin, I suppose, needs to make sure that he doesn't panic. Well, there's no more experienced winner at this level of racing.
Front group's going up Tyenberg here.
Up the Tyenberg, and of course that is Tom Bonin's hill, but he's not going to be at the front attacking it this time round, is he? 3 minutes and 2 seconds, and the groups are scattered all over the road. We've got some leading contenders struggling to get back into contention. We've got riders at the front. Brian van Godem, as I said, is really struggling to get into this group and to maintain his position in it. The Dutch rider getting plenty of support from the crowds. They're starting to mass now. Big crowd on the moor in Gerardsbergen a little bit earlier on, but the Tyenberg, they've come out to see can Tornado Tom do it one more time. Well, he's got a lot of work to do to get back into contention. And this is the back of the race, and it is chaos because the cavalcade is desperately trying to pick up their leaders, get back up towards the front. There are groups all over the road. Tom Bonin is in one of these chase groups. Is this the one? No, I think perhaps not.
I think he's further back than that.
Indeed, and one wonders whether it's possible. Still a long way to go, and it's about not panicking at this moment.
Yeah, you can't panic. You just got to find a group that you can work with. But looking at how spread out the groups are here, it's an awful long way back to the front of the race. And looking at the pace here, the race is now on.
Well, the bunch up front is stretched thin. They're chasing hard. They're in the crosswind sections, just under 60 kilometers left in the 72nd edition of Het Nieuwsblad, as the Trek Segafredo squad really try to put the hurt on the rest. Are they thinking about trying to make sure that Tom Bonin and Alexander Kristoff don't get back, because they've been caught in this incident here, almost at the front of the bunch. Touch of wheels, riders go down like skittles, down like 9 pins, and well, that was just a massive jumble of confusion, and plenty of riders are not going to be able to make it back in. Will Tom Bonin be one of those, or will the superstar of Belgian cycling on the victory tour, on the retirement tour somewhat, planning to pack it in at the end of Paris-Roubaix in April? Win, lose or draw on that occasion. He'd like to take victory in Het Nieuwsblad. Well, will it be possible for him to do that? Jelle Wallace is a very, very strong rider, and the Lotto Soudal squad could really do with his strength and his legs back in that lead group. He's in the cavalcade, he's got cars in front of him, so that will give him some relief, but once that group in front of him, they really pile it on. Stuyven has plenty to think about. We're on the Tyenberg.
Greg van Avermaet there in second wheel as well, last year's winner in the red and black, or more black from BMC.
There's Van Mark in third as well.
Yeah.
He's back with the Cannondale squad, back with the Tailwind Sports team, and looking strong, and it's looking good at the moment for Trek Segafredo, going a little bit earlier than they might have wanted to do. A few cracks appearing. Sky trying to get back.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it. It's Peter Sagan actually chasing on there. I think that was Luke Rowe on his wheel, but trying to hold the wheel at least. Really, really hard.
Well, the Sepp Van Mark flag gives you the indication this crosswind is coming from the right-hand side, but they're staying on the right-hand side to get the best of the gutter and get the best of the surface, but they're trying to put this one back together. It's taking a bit of time.
It certainly is, but look how strong Peter Sagan has just crossed that gap, and he's now with the front group.
It's easy when you're talented, isn't it?
Apparently.
He's got the tights on, so I think he probably didn't get the Vita this week, but still he'll take the win if it's coming. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't rule him out, because the Sky team have come with their Crack Classics outfit. They've got Stannard. I think that could well be in Stannard there that finds himself into a chasing position. And it's an interesting situation, Magnus, in that we're relatively early in this race for the leading contenders to be having to burn matches.
Yeah, it is very early on, but at the same time, any other races in Belgium, should we call the mini Tour of Flanders, there's more crashes here happening.
Well, the bunch, or at least one of the bunches, have arrived on the Tyenberg, and it's chaos, confusion. It's Belgian racing.
Zico Waitens there on the left-hand side for some has had a bit of a tough go at it over the last 20 kilometres as well. He's been down before.
Well, at least there's a crowd there to try and help put it back together again. Antonini for the Wanty Group Gobert squad finds himself not exactly enjoying things. Peter Cunning as well. It's towards the back of the group for Aqua Blue Sport. What's at the front of this group? And more particularly, what's the gap from this group to the leaders up front? Will they be able to get back in there?
All the wind that we have here today as well is something that's going to play into the action of the race, and every time we have a crosswind section, the pace automatically gets driven up high, and with that you get the splits in the bunch behind. So you see very much so now.
Van Avermaet goes. Sagan has spotted that one. Stuyven is looking strong. He can sprint too. You've got three great sprinters that are using energy early on. They want to eliminate Kristoff. They want to eliminate Tom Bonin if they possibly can. And I think perhaps there's a sense that the race is on. And the best place, and the safest place to be, and the place where you're probably using, well, no more energy than anyone else in the race, is at the front. So why not try and turn the screw a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. It's all a question of, like I said, it's easier when you're in the front, in the first 15-20 riders. You get a clear road in front of you, and a lot of the time you end up in breaks that you didn't even know you were in.
Yeah.
You look around and all of a sudden there's a big split behind you, and that's a nice position to be in.
Van Mark goes to the front of this group. It's a select group at the moment, trying to pick out some numbers at the back end of it. Has won this race before. He is not a prolific winner in the classics. He is always one of the favourites. He's one of the riders that I think is really set for a massive breakthrough, and may well really enjoy the fact. It's a nice bit of bike handling, wasn't it? Well, you bunny hop when you're leaned over at 45 degrees.
That's That's something you learn when you race in Belgium an awful lot, and I've said it before and I say it again. Racing in Belgium is probably the best school of racing that you can ever find. If you can handle yourself on these roads, then you can race pretty much anywhere.
Group coming back together again, and Sky have managed to get a representative into it. Is it Stannard or is it Luke Rowe?
It looks like Luke Rowe to me, but...
Calling this the third chase group, now saying 2 minutes and 6 seconds down. So the Group 3 on the road, of course, we've got 3 riders up front, including Grifko from Astana. Then we've got our initial breakaway group of 6 riders who've been out there for a long, long time. Maximum advantage, 6 3/4 minutes. That's down to 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Going to be tough for any of those riders to be a contender. Look at this man, though. He really is a contender. Peter Sagan goes to the front. It's a busy style, but it is effective, and he really does soak up the cobbles without any apparent difficulty. Cruising across the next section of pavé. Van Avermaet, well, whenever Sagan goes, Van Avermaet will, and if Van Avermaet finds himself on the front, you can be sure that Sagan won't be too far from his wheel. They've recognised each other's ability.
Yeah, we're not too far from the Eikenberg as well, which is these riders are on here now. This is certainly in that Nieuwsblad not too difficult to climb, because you can ride on the left-hand side on the tarmac here, but still a very, very tough climb, as you can see, maxing out at 10%. And once you get up to the top here, it's flat over the top with a lot of cobblestones there as well. So it's one of those really grippy little sections of road.
Well, plenty of shouts for Ian Stannard on Twitter this afternoon, at DQ Sport or at Maggie_PR. This is the front group, much more benign and calm, their body language on the bike. Of course, they're tired men at this stage. They've been out there for a long time. Miles was starting to take their toll. Still, they will hope that they can get to the finish if by the time they're caught, they still have enough energy to get into whatever group arrives. And this looks like it is the serious group. Trek Segafredo have got options in there. Looks like Van Mark is flying solo at the moment. Lotto and El Jumbo are represented.
That is Luke Rowe.
Yeah, looks like Luke Rowe has got there for Sky. He goes well in this race. Stannard hasn't quite made it yet.
No, I don't think this is the final selection either. I think there are more riders to come, and I think actually, if you're looking back there's another Sky rider on his way, and that may very well be Ian Stannard.
Yeah, I think Stannard was certainly in between. And Luke Rowe would probably be minded not to make an effort here.
He doesn't have to.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to. There's teams in here who have 2 riders, and there's certainly other riders who are more keen on making this stick. And certainly when you got a man like the guy in the second wheel here with the world champion stripes on him, you don't really want to be taking too many turns either, because he's such a fast finisher as well. So save everything and try and create something later on.
Yeah, his Stannard has made it. I think that Luke Rowe just rolls to the back. No, there's another. There's 3 Sky have managed to get in there. So the numerical advantage immediately moves to Sky. Stan have got a couple of riders in there, perhaps looking to pick up numbers. But Lawrence de Vries, of course, this goes well in these races. Down to 1 minute and 49 seconds. The gap to the front is coming down. It's more significant, really, those riders that are able to get back into this Group 3 on the road. Cannondale would certainly be of a mind. Sebastian Langeveld, of course, is one of the former winners of this race that's with the Cannondale squad.
I think the team that's missed out massively on this one is Quickstep.
Yeah, I mean, a Belgian Classic, I mean, we should at this point be looking at about 4 or 5 Quickstep jerseys on the front, controlling the pace. That's what they do.
That's usually what they do, but also if we go back and have a look at the previous editions of this particular weekend, usually Quickstep mess it up on one of the days. It's either in this one or in Kuurne-Brussels-Kuurne. So I don't know how many times it's happened in the past when they've had a really bad opening day in Nieuwsblad and then come back in 4s in Kuurne-Brussels-Kuurne and really dominated that one. So seems like
they do have that ability. I suppose if they want to give one up, they'd give up the Omloop for Ronda anytime.
Il est revenu devant.
climbs, 10 cobble sectors, 2 cobbles on the climbs as well. It is it's a challenging 190.
Allez Arnaud, allez! Allez Florian! Adrien Petit. Julien Maurice, il est...
Well, they've got some work to do because the likes of Peter Sagan are up front. Ian Stannard and Luke Rowe have made it into the front group, and there are plenty of others that are scrabbling to get back in, not least, of course, Tom Bonin, the man from Quick Step, and they find themselves in a lot of difficulty after an untimely crash.
The problem with this particular part of the race as well is that all the climbs and cobblestone sections, they keep on coming out.
Elle est bien donc là, une demi là. Faut que je garde. Christophe Laporte. J'ai pas vu Marc. Il est pas là Marc. Goal. Allez Cyril, allez!
At you so quickly that you don't really have any time to recover. It's such an intense part of the race, so it's going to be hard work for anyone to try and get back into this group here now, and certainly Peter Sagan looks like he's very keen on making this stick.
Well, we've seen in the past that Peter Sagan is not afraid to try. He's not afraid to attack, and he's not afraid to attack from a long way out. But this is interesting because, well, traditionally you would say you would wait, but I'm not so sure. Sagan really feels like this is the time to put the hammer down.
Question is, with that little group there now, where were the 3 Sky Riders?
Yeah, because Sagan has just gone to the front and split the group to bits. So
yeah,
the
Wolvenberg is not the most difficult climb on the day. It's a short section,
Brian
very,
Van
very
Donen would
steep.
agree with you.
Well, maybe not, but it's actually quite a good climb to do. It's actually more of a climber's type of climb than a classic rider's type of climb. So
smooth.
Vroeger van Chin moet ik zeggen, richting Vermoed. Enfin, dat zijn allemaal dingen die hij misschien wel graag doet. Want vanochtend had hij het op het startpodium ook nog over de plaatjes die hij frequenteerde tijdens
road surface as well.
Yeah, very good.
A little bit of vague relief for the riders at this point in the race. And Sagan has put the hammer down. He has eliminated Team Sky, at least for the present. Direct Energy have managed to get a rider in there. Can't believe that's Cocard after his delay a little earlier on.
I think that might be Adrien Petit.
Yeah, good call, because Petit is a super rider in these Northern Classics. Got a string of great results from the races in Brittany and Normandy.
And where have the 3 Sky Riders gone?
Sky missed the boat. Stan only get 1 in. Van Mark's alive to it. So too is Van Avermaet. This is all about Peter Sagan. Welcome to the Peter Sagan show. There you have the scene. They're all strung out behind. It's got to be a good 20 seconds or more, and you just see the Sky Riders pick them out in the background, frantically scrabbling to get back into contention. It's Grivko, of course, that they picked up, the Astana rider. He was up the road and tried to counter-attack, led a group of 3. And Bouda, of course, as well was part of that. Gujar is the AG Tour. That's the 3 riders that they have picked up who had countered. So what legs have they got? Sagan, as if to say, God, can you guys not come round me? And they go, well, no, we actually can't.
It certainly looks like Peter Sagan is on a good day here.
He has in the past been accused of using up the matches, of showing his strength a little bit too early on. Sometimes he just can't contain himself.
No, he's a racer at the end of the day, and he loves getting stuck in with the racing, and that's part of the thing that I really do like with Peter Sagan. He's not a one-trick pony. He's not going after the sprints all the time. He's there to race his bike, and he does what he races the way he enjoys to race, and I think that's what's making. 100 meter. 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 100 meter.
Die nog iets, hè? Ah, ze hadden jullie, ja toch wel. Ja, Lou, maar daar is het allemaal van.
Hoe dat? Moet alles terug met hem.
Hier, Steven, je moet te lossen. Hier.
Trentin.
Trentin, ja. Hier een parkeersblok.
Ja. Hier, parkeersblok. Doe maar juist. Goed man. Dus hij steun en Bahrein.
En de Lions uit Nederland, Nederlands Limburg. En dat betekent dus dat voor de derde plaats zal moeten spelen. En dat is toch een bespreekt woord.
Hier, weer. En de Koosler, dat is het.
Twee van Kiba dus.
29, dat is Corridon daar?
Corridon pas. De naam van Quickstemma.
Terstra.
Terstra juist?
Ja.
Uiteindelijk kregen we weer eens ongeveer in het midden van de tweede helft een verschil van 6 doelpunten.
Geweldig. Hier de Vrezen, de Vrezen.
Hier, Bright.
Maar uiteindelijk werd het 33-37 en dus geen finale in de Premier League voor Tongeren. Tongeren dat
Van Baarle.
Turning and we make the preparations for that so that you know exactly where you are all the time and what's coming up next. And it also requires a very good sport director in the car. All these guys have got radios in their ears, and the sport director can actually make the riders' lives so much easier by understanding when the cobblestones are, and you're kind of preparing them at least one, if not two sections ahead as to what's going on. So as they're going up, going across.
Hier, benoemd.
Van Boera, allemaal van Boera.
Bijna. Het is benoten juist.
Ja? Kijk.
Hier, andere naald.
Nee, dat is Corridon, 134. En dat eruit de stap zijn ziegers. Hè?
Goes scrabbling around, just trying to hang on the wheel at the back of this group. He's maybe regretting going up the road. I think this is what this is absolutely what he wanted. He was hoping that if he's up the road, that riders are going to come across to him and he can hang on with the big boys. He's a superbly talented rider, but I tell you what, it looks so much easier at the moment for Peter Sagan than it does for Andrei Grivko at the back of this 6-rider group, which is the second group on the road. Sorry. Yep, second group on the road, still the 6 up front, do believe, and then the third group on the road, 1 minute and 27 seconds, is a big group, a significant group. The question is, where are those Sky riders? Luke Rowe, Ian Stannard, just as if there's Stannard on the left-hand side, 2-time winner of this race, starting to shake his head. Look, Stuyven behind him for Trek Segafredo, of course, had kicked off a lot of this activity. And
the first quick step rider in there as well, Matteo Trentin.
Yeah, Trentin is on the blower. He's radioing back to Wilfred Peters and asking, what should I do? What do I do? Do I stay up here? Do we ride? Or feeling a little bit light on numbers in there. Extraordinary that the first quick step would be in the second significant group on the road. The rest of the team, well, is very much missing. So there you go, the head of the race. As the head of the race is the early break of the day. 6 riders up front. Van Gogham's hanging on grimly. So too are all of those in the wake of Peter Sagan's second group. Under a minute down. And then 1 minute 21 seconds in total, so that's what, about 30 seconds, just over half a minute back to the Sky-led third group on the road.
And these guys are on the section of Mat that it's called, and it's one of those very, very difficult ones. It doesn't look like it's particularly difficult, but it falls flat uphill all the time, and the cobblestones are fairly rough as well. So as the group of Peter Sagan, they were taking the sidewalk here and using that, which is a lot smoother, but there's a lot more to come of this race. I don't think it's over yet.
Well, I suppose the question is, what is the motivation for Peter Sagan to lay it down on these riders, to bring riders of the caliber of Sepp van Mark and Greg van Avermaet in his wake? Is he happy to just ride along? I mean, is this just tapping out a tempo rhythm for him? He's got to be making a big effort here. Van Mark wants to give him a turn.
I don't think, looking at Peter Sagan and his body language, he's not going flat out here. He's certainly well within his comfort zone. Yes, he's working, but he's not working any more than any of the other riders are. And like we've said so far, it's all about staying near the front and making sure you stay out of trouble. And with the sections of road that we have coming as well, this is a good position for him to be in.
Well, Greg van Avermaet feels in a position to contribute to the point where it causes a little bit of a fracture in that group. I think it's going to be all up to Van Avermaet, Sagan and Van Mark to do the work here. The other 3 riders make weights to a certain extent as they continue to close down the advantage to the early break of the day. There you have it. Still out front. In all that activity, they seem to have jettisoned Lee Howard, but still 5 riders up front. Brian Van Goghem at the back. The front here is Mike Teunissen, the Dutch rider. Gediminas Bagdonis is in there, and of course Preben van Hek as he rolls to the front. And indeed Justin Jules, the Frenchman with Veron Classic, riding on the front here. Makes way for Bagdonis, the Lithuanian, in his 5th year with the AG Tour Le Mondial. Time flies.
I think we've lost Lee Howard out of that group up there as well.
Yeah. In all that activity. The Australian rider with Team Aqua Blue has been left to his own devices further back the road, and Peter Sagan, it's not what you call an elegant style, but my God, is it effective. Gujar now, all 6 are starting to contribute, so Sagan is starting to review. This is the opportunity, this is the time. This is the time for Ian Stannard to try and see if he can make his way across. It looks like Jesper Stuyven is interested in maybe assisting him, but this doesn't seem to be total accord in that group and total physical ability to assist.
Well, there should be a couple of riders in this group here happy to contribute to the workload. There are a few teams that have actually missed out on that front group, and with that they should be quite keen on riding. Although there is a fairly large group coming behind, so it might just be a case of sit up and wait, lose 10 seconds, and then gain an awful lot of firepower in terms of getting a good chase together and starting to bring back the likes of Sagan.
Well, what are they going to do? 46 kilometers remaining. Sky at the moment in a little bit of a pickle, because Peter Sagan is up the road and leading a very, very strong group. Het Nieuwsblad is boiling up nicely. Join us for the next part after this short break. Very shortly be joining up with the leaders in Het Nieuwsblad 2017, because it's now down to what, less than 20 seconds to the 6 riders and the 5 riders that have been up front for the majority of the afternoon. And now we find that riders who counterattacked are being jettisoned, and that's Thomas Buda of direct energy, because Peter Sagan has gone to the front once more. Every time there's a climb or there's a cobbled section, Sagan goes to the front, and the others are, well, there's nothing they can do about it. They leave it to him. Seth Van Mark is bunny hopping his way across the grass and onto the dirt and into the ditches to try and maintain his position close to the front. That's the difference between groups 1 and 2 on the road. The difference between group 2 and group 3 is the significant one, because that is now at what, 35 seconds, and that is significant because the Sky Squad, Trek Segafredo as well, found themselves lacking a little bit when Sagan went to the front, and they've now been joined by a bigger group. So it's a group of what, maybe about 35 riders that are chasing.
It's quite a significant group. It's quite a significant group that's coming in. I'd almost call that a peloton now.
Well, now there you have it. They've decided these two groups are put together, and they're saying now it's 46 seconds to the peloton behind. So what sort of firepower is there behind? What sort of motivation is there for Peter Sagan really to ram home the advantage?
The problem is going to be here now what these guys do at the front here, because all of a sudden we're effectively 9 riders in the front group, and that's a bit more difficult to manage in terms of who's doing the workload and so on. And we've got 2 riders now from the AG2, Bagdonas and Gojard. So they're going to need to start doing a bit more work as well. Although I think it's going to be on Bagdonas to do the driving.
Have they got the strength? Bagdonas kicked it off. He's clearly likes this kind of racing, and he's been out front all afternoon.
Yeah.
Gojard, well.
And we're also coming straight out of this of the Haghook cobblestone section here, and then going straight into the next climb, which is Leebari, 950 meters with a maximum percentage of 13.8. So it's a tough climb as well. So have those guys at the front, they got anything left in their legs to actually follow the likes of Sagan and certainly Greg van Avermaet?
Well, there is the group chasing behind now. Just under 40 seconds is the gap between our lead group, which is swelled in numbers. Approximately 11 riders up front, led by Peter Sagan, and now the riders behind. That's Grivko being picked up by this bunch, and
But even Van Henk doing a good job up the climb here, really putting the pressure on, trying to get over this before he actually gets caught by Peter Sagan.
Well, not a bad idea, I tell you what, because here comes Sagan. The gaps we've been given are indicating that these groups have come together, but they haven't quite... well, there you go. Sagan arrives. Brian Van Gogh finds himself being distanced. That's been his experience pretty much all afternoon. They're the 2 AG2R Le Mondial riders. Lithuanian Bagdonas 147 and in his wheel Alexis Gojard. Gojard is a good finisher in this race. He's a relatively strong rider for the Northern Classics. Could well be that Bagdonas, as you say, puts himself into service, but will they be bit part players, or do they have the strength to really get involved? The Sky Squad, they've got strength in numbers as well. But, the likes of Luke Rowe, Johnny Moscon, and Ian Stannard has had to do quite a bit of it himself. Brian, oh, look at that problem for Peter Sagan. Finds himself in the ditch. Momentary lapse of concentration, was it? Well, they're not waiting for him because Brian Van Gogh manages to get back into the wheels. Let's have a little look and see what this problem was for Sagan. Was it just lack of concentration? I think he might have been stem watching there for a moment.
May very well have been.
They print the... Well, no, it doesn't appear to be on his top tube, but some of the teams, and most of the teams indeed, will print the various obstacles that they have to encounter. 13 climbs, remember.
Pete Sagan has got that on his stem. You can see the little white marks on the stem just behind his bike computer, effectively. That's where he's got all the little markers for when the climbs are coming, when the cobblestones are coming, and
it's a lot to take in, isn't it, when you're racing? I mean, it can be hard to see it.
It's an awful
lot.
Have
you ever found yourself reading it with interest, or is it just something there for comfort, or can you really get useful info out of it?
No, you do get useful information out of it, and it's more sort of you draw a little triangle for a climb, and then you put the kilometer sign down and draw a couple of circles, and that's a cobblestone section, so you know exactly when they start. And with that, you just check what kilometers have you done, and you look down. Okay, I know where I'm coming to next, and you also do an awful lot of prep going into a weekend like this, understanding, knowing the roads, revisiting the road book, and just reading up on that, maybe going back and watching last couple of years races, and how's what's the racing looked like, and just try and create a picture for yourself, and effectively be prepared for whatever can come.
Well, there's the Sky-led big bunch up, now 41 seconds, so they're not really making any inroads into that group of 9 up front. Now remember, of that 9, 5 have been out front for most of the afternoon, so you'd expect that the big energy is coming from the other 4 in the group, but they're not really getting there, are they?
No, they're not, and I find it quite interesting that it's only Sky really riding on the front. There's an awful lot of other teams who missed out on this group up front, so surely they should put down some work as well.
Team Sky on the front. They've got BMC for company, but I think we're going to get too much contribution from the BMC squad, because up front in Het Nieuwsblad, with just under 40 kilometers remaining, is a group of 9 made up of 5 riders from the early break of the day, and then 4 riders from a counter-attack led by the world champion Peter Sagan. And Sky, well, they were part of that for a little while, but found themselves wanting on one of the relentless and interminable climbs that are presented to the riders in this opening race in the Belgian Classics season. The Northern Classics have begun, and for many the most important part of the year, and that group has swelled in size, but at the moment, as Magnus has pointed out to us, it's really just the Sky team that are taking responsibility, and that is giving, well, that's playing a dangerous game with Sagan and Van Avermaet.
Yeah, it certainly is, but it's also only one rider, Gianni Moscon, who's doing all the riding on the front for Team Sky at the moment, so it's certainly a difficult position for them to be in.
Well, they picked out the reigning Belgian champion, 2-time Het Nieuwsblad winner, Philippe Gilbert. Chavanel is part of this group as well for Direct Energy, so plenty of conversation going on there. Quick Step have Matteo Trentin, but quite noticeable that they're lacking in numbers. And again, inevitably, it is Peter Sagan. When the road goes up or they hit a cobbled sector, it's the world champion Arc-en-Ciel Stripes that head to the front of the group, and immediately he's starting to make some riders suffer. Van Mark, it was noticeable. He tried to drop out of the line and make 1 or 2 riders contribute a little bit more than they wanted to. Now it's Van Avermaet that has to close the gap.
Yeah, Van Avermaet had to do that, but I think it's quite interesting in watching Peter Sagan when he rides his bike. Anytime there's a really technical section, corners, cobblestones, you name it, anything that looks a bit tricky, he goes through them at his full speed, which causes everyone to have to chase him down and really push themselves to follow his wheel. And it doesn't cost him any energy, but he spends an awful lot of energy for the other guys. So in that way, he's just putting himself in that super strong position where everyone is always on the back foot.
Yeah, he's the man in control. He's controlling the agenda on the frontier. Van Avermaet has been noticeable in that he hasn't made a single contribution that hasn't been absolutely necessary to this point. He is the reigning champion. He's the reigning Olympic champion, as has been pointed out to us on Twitter. Plenty of tweets coming into hashtag Home of Cycling. And Boom Platang says Sagan killing himself as usual while others feign exhaustion. And well, you might say that. Is it perhaps tactical naivety from a man who's won 2 world championships in a row?
Well, you never know, but he's certainly looking very strong at the moment. We're on our way towards the Molenberg now as well, which is another fairly tasty climb. It's 7%. It's not particularly long, but it's got some cobblestones on it as well. So, as we've said before, all these climbs are coming so quickly at them. Interestingly, though, for this race, the final 30 kilometers or so are actually fairly flat and no real difficulties. So, although we're looking at about 38 seconds here at the moment back to the peloton, with only one rider really doing the work on the front in Gianni Moscon, there's still an awful long way for these guys to keep on working together to get themselves to the point where they can start thinking about winning the bike race.
Yeah, we're getting towards the final now. We're pretty much in the final at this point. A little bit of a dig there from Sepp Van Mark, perhaps doing what
he's just wanted to get into this one. It's a very, very difficult climb. This really, really narrow. a lot of the time extremely slippery when you're coming up to the next section here, just turning around this right-hand corner. Luckily it's dry today, but I know in the past it's been so difficult to keep any kind of traction.
And that was a pretty good move from Van Mark, doing really what you had said that Sagan had been doing, taking control, leading into that cobble climb. And Sagan finds himself in fourth or fifth wheel and having to close a little bit of a gap. And Avermaet is alive to the danger. Mike Tennyson from the early break looks like he's still full of fight. Preben van Heck, the former Belgian national road race champion, well, his legs are tired at this point. So too Gediminas Bagdonis, Alexis Goujar as well, the AG Tour Le Mondial. Right, look at that.
Il est pas là. Sagan. Ah putain! Sagan. Allez Alexis, allez!
For Sagan, finally manages to extricate himself from the early breakaway riders and just ghosts across to the two riders in front, making it a select group of champions on the front. And now we're starting to see a little bit of movement from behind. I suspect a little bit of panic is starting to creep in here. We're down to the last 35 kilometers.
Yeah, it's there should be a certain amount of panic in the bunch here, but I think that hurt Peter Sagan a bit going across that gap, though. It didn't look like he was sort of just floated across there.
Used exactly the amount of energy as was required, in total confidence that he was going to be able to make it. So Peter Sagan gets himself into the wheel as the gaps start to appear a little bit further behind. Is this Stibar? Just looks like from Quick Step. Could be Trent in behind as well. So Quick Step starting to make their presence felt on the front of the chase group, but that gap.
Allez Adrie! Allez Philippe! Allez Arnaud, allez!
So far we had a group of 6 riders up the road. Behind them the bunch was working their way through the various cobbled sectors and climbs, and then one of those inevitable crashes that tend to characterize Northern Classics racing caught out riders. Touch of wheels very close to the front of the bunch meant that Tom Bonin was at the bottom of a pile of bikes, so too Alexander Kristoff, so too Brian Kokar, and in a flash some of the real favourites for this event found themselves in difficulty and chasing. We're just over 30 kilometres remaining. The Padestrat is the next section coming up in a little while, and that's over 2 kilometres of cobbled riding. That's a tough section.
Yeah, it is a tough section, but what's even harder is that the fact that you got another section coming straight after that, the Lippenhovenstraat, which is another 1,300 metres. So there's a lot of cobblestones to be raced in the next sort of 5-6 kilometres here.
The chase behind. Luke Rowe gets onto a big gear and windmills it, you might say. And they've stretched that into a select chase group. You would expect that at least the riders in there will all be minded to chase, because for quite a while there really wasn't more than 1 or 2 riders doing the work on the front. 5 up front. What a great ride from Mike Tennyson, and also from Justin Jules from the Varying Classics squad to
really
get there to survive in there. Yeah, from the early break they've stayed with the 3 superstars. Tennyson is able to give a turn as well, as indeed is Justin Jules, and there's no better way to do it than that. Left turn. If you're not going left, you're going right, because you're not often going straight, are you, in one of these races?
That's usually the case in when you're racing in Belgium. It's like a long criterium race.
Very long, 198 kilometres. So Sepp van Mark, former winner of this race, would like to get his Classics campaign off to the perfect start. The return to Slipstream Sports, well, will it pay dividends for him? He's part of a select group of 5 up front in Het Nieuwsblad. Inside 33 kilometres to go. Join us for the next part. Just over 30 kilometres remaining. Het Nieuwsblad 2017 is boiling up nicely. We've got a select group of 3 riders up front that are winners of the Olympic Games, the World Road Race Championship, and indeed 2 of this trio have won this race in the past. The reigning champion Greg van Avermaet sitting in the wheel of the 2012 winner Sepp van Mark. This is a chase group desperate to try and get back on terms. They've got it to within 27 seconds. I said it was a select group of 3 up front because it's actually 5. Immediately becomes 4 as indeed make that 3 because Mike Teunissen, manning camera here, is one of the riders from the early break. Team Sunweb rider, Dutch rider, has done a great ride all day. Looks like he might just be able to get back into the wheel. We're on the Paterstraat, and this is a 2.3 kilometre cobble fest. And great to have so many of you with us on Twitter today. Robbo's saying, putting the hammer down here and drawing out the other possible winners, totally dictating this race. Hashtag beast. And who would argue with that one? Because Peter Sagan has Mike Teunissen, and that's fatigue, isn't it?
Yeah, that is just lack of concentration, really. And this section here, like, you can ride on that drain, but you got to pay attention. It's so narrow. You can also, as you're turning up onto the cobblestone, the lip onto the cobblestones is actually fairly high in most places. So you got to just watch what you're doing when you get across back onto the road again. But it's a very, very tough section, probably one of the hardest sections in Belgium, actually. And as soon as we get out of here, we only got a kilometre or so until we actually hit the next section of cobblestones, the Lippenhovenstraat, which is another 1,300 metres of tough cobbles.
Well, Van Mark owns it at the moment. He's on the front for Team Cannondale. Returned to the team that once known as Garmin. That's when he was really broke through and established himself as one of the favourites from Northern Classics Racing. This is the chase group now, still sitting at 32 seconds now, so they've lost about 5 seconds since they hit this cobbled section, and that, I think, is perhaps an indication that it's going to be a tough day out for them. Gediminas Bagdonis was in the early break of the day. He's been picked up now by Group 2, and he'll be hoping against hope that he can get to the end of the Paterstraat, at least with this group, to have any sense of staying in contention. Magnus, here's the question: will this group be able to get back up there?
Well, there's still 28 kilometres to go. Okay, we've got one more cobblestone section here, and then it's a fairly long section of flattish roads and just normal bike racing, effectively. And then we've got one more section, I believe, before we actually get to the finish. So that kind of sort of moves the race towards the bigger bunch, and certainly the chasing group here. There's only got 3 riders in the front, although it's not just your everyday 3 riders. They are probably 3 of the best classic riders in the world. Yeah, they are only 3 riders, and here we go, turning left onto Lippenhovenstraat. It's another tough section here now. But after this particular section, like I said, it does become easier. And I think these 3 are going to have to work really hard to stay clear.
Well, the word is out. Tom Bonin, we understand, has abandoned. Thanks to all of you tweeting that news. The man who is coming into his final Het Nieuwsblad will, unfortunately, end his career without adding this race to his palmarès. Tornado Tom, well, he still has Paris-Roubaix and plenty of other classics opportunities before the end of his career at the end of April, but for Tom Bonin, it's a disappointing day. Caught in that crash with about 70 kilometres to go, and unfortunately not able to get back to the front of the race.
No, exactly. Although I would go and, if I was a betting man, I probably would go and put something on Tom for tomorrow's race now. If he's had a bad race here, he usually comes back out and goes really well in Kuurne, Brussels-Kuurne. So
yeah, let's not forget KBK. It's here on Eurosport tomorrow afternoon. Hashtag home of cycling. Kuurne, Brussels-Kuurne always plays a double act with Het Nieuwsblad. Once upon a time, it was a sort of a stage race, wasn't it? They gave points for the 2 events, and they gave an overall prize for the best performances across the 2 days. These days, well, Kuurne, Brussels-Kuurne, if it doesn't always end in a sprint. Indeed, we've seen Jasper Stuyven, who's a fast finisher himself, deciding to go for broke, and it paid dividends. Greg van Avermaet just losing a bottle there. It's surely not of any major significance, just I think gives you an indication of just how rough these cobbles are. I think it's in slow motion that you really see what a pounding the riders are getting. And look at Peter Sagan. This is a tough section.
Yeah, I was going to say, even Peter Sagan looks like he's hurting a bit on this section here.
Even Peter Sagan, that just shows you how tough a section.
Even Peter Sagan, yeah.
Sometimes the cobbles win, huh? 27 seconds now So that gap's coming down a little bit through that cobbled sector, down to 3 riders. They've lost the riders that were in the early break. Van Avermaet, well, wasn't without a bottle for too long, picks up a full bottle and with it a gel taped. Misses one, gets another one. And those BMC support team will have been all over Belgium. They'd have been crisscrossing sectors all afternoon, and they've been putting team cars and supporters on just about at the end of every section of cobbles to make sure that riders don't have to ride on a flat tire for too long, don't have to ride on a broken bike at all, and of course are able to pick up a bottle whenever they need it. Van Mark settles into the pain and the suffering behind Peter Sagan. So it is Peter Sagan, the world champion, taking time for a gel. Will this allow the others to get a little bit closer? Down to 25 seconds. Could be moving time. The peloton behind, picking up riders from ahead.
These guys need to really get organised and start riding well together as well. There's a big group chasing behind there. So if they're keen to try and bring Sagan and Van Mark and Van Avermaet back, then they can't just hang around here. Gilbert has made it into this group as well, so all of a sudden Quick Step have got themselves a couple of riders in a very strong position now.
Well, Quick Step have numbers chasing, not exactly the ideal situation for them, but they've started to develop a tactical reason to start chasing. Lotto Soudal have missed it, so too have Trek Segafredo. Just over 25 kilometres remaining. 26 seconds the gap between this group and the group of 3 up front, led by Peter Sagan, Greg Van Avermaet, Sepp Van Mark. Those are the 3 riders that have been in the forefront of this race since what, about 55 kilometres remaining, or more indeed. They've been to the fore, and Sagan has just been relentless in his willingness to forge a way out front, really boss this one. And now we start to see a little bit of a coordinated chase because Magnus Quick Step have the numbers. They've got a reason to really put, use up a couple of riders here.
Yeah, I think they have to. It looks like it's Matteo Trentin, Stibar and Philippe Gilbert in that chasing group. So they certainly have the right riders and the numbers as well. So they need to start working a bit more and try and bring this group back. But looking at the trio up front, they are working very well together, and they're going to have to start, just really keep on doing that and not start playing any tactical games just yet.
Well, they pick out Gilbert. Now that's Luke Rowe to the fore. Well, Luke Rowe, strong in the classics, will surely believe that he can do a job. And I don't think there are too many riders that are, well, they're all giving a turn, but then just as you say it, gap goes up to 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Not sure what that call was for. Maybe there was a car on the or a motorbike on the side of the road. They just needed to make them aware, and there's not too much of a gap between this motorcycle and the group that are chasing. So I don't think Peter Sagan would be too satisfied if he was aware of that fact. They do have a zoom lens though, so let's not make any assumptions. This is the gap. Philippe Gilbert, the reigning Belgian national champion, is chasing this group up front. Peter Sagan moved over to Bora Hangstra, and the question marks were that the team might be a bit light. They mightn't be able to support him, but well, he's used to that and he doesn't seem to mind.
No, I don't think he seems to mind at all, to be honest. He's brought some very strong riders with him across to that team as well, so I'm sure he will be in a position where he's got the backup to do the things that he wants to do. And certainly if we're looking at this race, he's looked after well in the beginning of the race, and then really came down to him doing the work at the end of the day.
Yeah, this is the kind of racing that you can actually do it yourself if you've got the sense, you've got the ability, and you've got the little bit of luck. It all counts in large amounts in Belgian Classics racing. And now contributions from Lotto Soudal. Just that once again, and so often flatter to deceive in this race. Teish Benoit, of course, racing for just getting the update on who's in here. Tunison, of course, picked up from the early group. Jasper Stuyven's on the front at the moment. Adrien Petit, we've seen, is the big, tall, imposing figure from Direct Energy. One of those French riders that loves classics racing. Philippe Gilbert in the Black, yellow and red colours of the Belgian national road race champion, the Sky Rider, Luc Rowe. And now, once more, it's Peter Sagan on the front. Perhaps sensing that the pace isn't quite in it. Goes to the front, little flick of the elbow as if to say, I need a little bit more from you guys. But they are managing and maintaining that gap. And meanwhile, the kilometres are clicking away.
They certainly are. Oh, it's Peter Sagan going very, very quick into that corner. He's just got such a good bike handling skills. Always seems to be in control even when he's not. But these three are certainly working well together, and it's difficult to get any kind of rhythm on these twisty technical roads as well. But a small group like this, certainly I think it's easier to get that rhythm going with them. They take a straight each and swap just before or just after every turn. And you can see the gap back to that group. It will motivate the chase a bit as well. They can now see where they are and they're not that far up ahead, and should certainly give them the motivation to chase back on.
Well, we've done the cobbles, we've done the climbs, and now it's a case of just winding and twisting our way back to Ghent. And there are several crosswind sections. The prevailing winds are from the southwest. They are fairly stiff breezes, and I can tell you when they don't have hedges or walls to divide the fields, as is the case in this part of Belgium. Well, the wind really does whip across the countryside and really catches those bikes. Not too many super deep section rims on offer, although increasingly you do see the deep section rims in classics racing. But for all that, it's still a 30-second gap back to this group of riders.
We've got one more cobblestone section coming up, the Langemunte, which is 2.5 kilometres, starting in about 1 kilometre now.
Oh.
So it's not quite over just yet for them.
Still that little sting in the tail, but well, predominantly it's going to be flat, smooth roads for these riders for a straight run-in. Straight run-in with all the bends. Van Avermaet puts the head down, gives a big turn. Peter Sagan, no difficulty with that. You can see the wind in this section just coming from the left-hand side of the road. Sagan takes the shelter, takes a drink. Van Mark is going to miss out just for a moment. Oh, and Peter Sagan, well, he likes to go off-road, doesn't he? He seems to be at his most comfortable. It is his first love, of course, mountain bike racing. But never a difficult moment for him. Let's get a look at this from the other angle.
Well, the thing is, he never panics when he sees those curbs either. He just rides up them and rides back down the other side, and it just uses every millimetre of hard surface that he can find to ride on, and it is really impressive.
That describes a rider who's really at one with their bike. They're in control of it, that they always have another option. There always is some other thing that they can do to try and extricate themselves from any slightly awkward situation.
Yeah, and I think that comes from his, like you said, love of mountain biking and riding cross and mountain bikes in the winter as well, and playing around with his bike all the time. He's always got that feel for the grip level, and it tends to be that so much quicker through any corner than anyone else, really.
"20 kilometres remaining in Het Nieuwsblad for 2017. It's visual. The gap between the three riders up front and the chasing group behind is no more than 30 seconds. It has flattered to deceive a little bit to the chasing group in the last little while. They were saying it was down inside 25 seconds. Do you know what? I think it might be less than 30 seconds. They were pretty quick, that second chasing group, to get underneath that KBC barrier there, weren't they? So I suspect that you could well have a situation where it's certainly no more than half a minute, and could well be enough to keep these riders interested, especially as they have the visuals. They can see the riders up front. That's going to give them the encouragement that they need, and they're all working.
They're all working. I was just going to say that they're starting to go through all of them now, and I think the fact that they were actually able to see these three guys across the fields earlier has just motivated the whole bunch. And obviously there's a couple of big names in there as well, willing to try and motivate everyone to take their turns, even if you don't spend an awful lot of time on the front driving hard. It's just keeping the pace going. It makes it so much easier for everyone in that group, and faster as well.
Well, here's that cobble section I'd forgotten about, but which they hadn't, you can be sure of it. Neutral service on the right hand side, as well as plenty of team cars. The BMC squad ready, willing and able to assist Greg van Avermaet, who's not afraid to do long turns on the front. He hands over to Sepp van Mark. And rolls to the back and immediately around. Doesn't sit on the wheel of Van Mark because he wants to get over onto the right-hand side of the road. And that just shows you the slightly different way that these riders will ride in windy conditions. The flag for Van Avermaet tells you a tale. This is a windy section, and that's all there is between them. 30 seconds, half a minute, no more than that, and it looks like well, it looks like they can just about reach out. Accept that as a given, and you know what, it doesn't really matter because they can see them, they know what they've got to do, and they know that there are more numbers contributing, and that has got to be significant, and that's got to tell a tale. And I tell you what, if these riders are dragged back, they're going to wonder at their hubris, their aggression, their It's got numbers.
It does have numbers, and if this comes together, I think we've got to start looking at maybe an Oscar Gatto for the win.
Everything!
Here would have one or two things to say about that.
Well, they're pretty consistent in terms of the time gaps that they're giving, so I suppose we need to accept it a little bit. Is this Peter Sagan starting to display a little fatigue, or is he perhaps just trying to play possum a little bit?
No, I think he's feeling this now, there's no doubt about it. Just goes to show he's not superhuman. But everyone out here supporting.
To make that right turn, because that turns into a tailwind, and traditionally the thinking is you hold what you have in a tailwind section, so it should be that they should be able to, once these riders turn right, manage the gap for as long as they have the tailwind. That's the theory anyway. It doesn't always work out like that, especially when you've got three riders up front who are starting to feel it. The crowd really starting to develop towards the back end of this race. Not much more than 10 miles of racing left in Het Nieuwsblad for 2017. And this, we wait with bated breath to see what's going to happen. There can be no question of attacking from the group behind, because it is all hands to the pump. They really have.
Yeah, they certainly do. It's the same up front here. Those three guys have to keep on working and work hard. There's, it's almost like they have to make a bit of a deal that, okay, let's bring this to the last kilometer and then sort things out after that, because the moment they start playing around, these guys are going to be up on them.
Well, Luke Rose at the head of the chasing group, and his elbow is waggling as if he's got a difficulty. I tell you what, he's just looking for assistance, and that is good news for these three riders up front, because if they start to falter, if those riders start to believe that perhaps some of the other riders aren't making enough of a contribution and that, well, why should I? Well, then that's the moment when these three riders, who are absolutely united in their effort to stay out front, will start to increase their advantage, and I think that that could well be the case over the next kilometre or so. Let's have a look and see whether there's a total united front in the chase group behind. The
Ja, beste. Wat denk je? Zo vooral.
Wat chew him on.
Peter Sagan drops into that flop-wristed mode that he likes to adopt as he droops his forearms over the handlebars. A more traditional approach from Greg van Avermaet, the reigning champion, a Belgian rider, as indeed is Sepp van Mark. As I said, only 8 nations have ever taken victory in this race. So it would be a remarkable turn of events if Peter Sagan was to add to that, as he would become the first Slovakian victor in Het Nieuwsblad history. Still to add this to his palmarès, and that will certainly be his thinking. I tell you what, if you've come this far in Het Nieuwsblad, you're not here for the training, you're here to win. What a scrap this is on the road. So much of the afternoon with a half-a-minute advantage. It really has stayed almost solid at that. It sort of went up to 40 seconds for a little while, then came back down to about 25 seconds. No more than that was the game, and now it's just sitting solid at half a minute. And it's 3 riders against a group of what, maybe 10 behind, and those riders pretty much united in their effort to get back on terms, but not able to do anything about it. The big, tall, imposing figure on the left is Adrien Petit of the Direct Energy squad. He's a big, strong rider, and he is making the effort. No effort from...
Zou het kunnen dat hij straks ook weer net iets...
Bennett.
There, they've got 3 riders in there, but they're not really able to impose their will. They haven't got the firepower, the sheer wattage to be able to make the difference.
No, they don't. I was just clocking about 35 seconds there, turn back to the chasing group, and certainly looks like these 3 guys up here are going very, very strong and working well together. There's no question of...
Talking.
Allez Olivier!
So when do they start thinking about this, about Ghent, about the finish line?
I think they've already started to think about it, and the only thing is, if they start playing any kind of tactical games, or they start saving a fraction, you notice that straight away in the group, and that means that the other guys are going to start backing off a fraction as well, and all of a sudden you've lost another kilometre an hour in terms of outright speed, and as soon as they do that, that chasing group are going to start coming at them very, very quickly. So they have to be 100%.
Well, Greg van Avermaet sitting second in line here. He won Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, of course, last season, sprinting through from a small group, select group of 4. Can he do the work the Oracle?
En dan de kampioen van Kazachstan.
Maxime Daniel. Romain, allez, go!
Once more again, if he did, he'd become the 10th rider to win this race in back-to-back years. Last rider to do that, Ian Stannard, of course, from Team Sky, hasn't quite got his A-game on board so far, but then he'll be thinking as well about working his way into the classic season and bringing his absolute best form to Paris-Roubaix, where he was 4th last year. So for Ian Stannard, he was part of the lead group when it split under the impetus of Peter Sagan, with around about 55 kilometres to go. Luke Rowe has managed to make it into the lead chase group, you might call it. Matteo Trentin is there for Quick Step. He's got a handy sprint on him, and he could do a job for Quick Step, but they've got to get back up to the 3 riders up front if they're going to be able to do that. 3 riders for Team Quick Step in this chasing group. They have the numbers, but they don't quite have the firepower. Still sitting steady at a half a minute. 12.3 kilometres remaining. So that's what, just under 8 miles of racing. Of these 3, are you? Is it too early to start thinking about? I mean, all 3 are pretty good sprinters. Of the 3, you'd probably say that Peter Sagan is certainly the most accomplished sprinter.
Well, in a bunch sprint, yeah, but this is not bunch sprinting anymore. It comes down to more of a match sprint, really, and hitting taking the right opportunity, the right moment to launch your sprint and trying to surprise everyone else. And we also got to remember that, okay, Greg Van Avermaet very, very fast. Sepp van Marken probably quicker. And at the end of a hard race like this one, and the fact that they've been sitting out here now, effectively team time trialing for such a long period of time, all of a sudden it's just who's got the most left in their legs and who wants this the most. Right now, I guess it's anyone's guess.
Tactically, do they bet? I mean, would you be betting on your own sprint, or do you think about trying to get away, particularly getting away from Peter Sagan, given the sort of strength that he's displayed so far? He's starting to look like he's feeling the distance a little bit now, but still, he's been so strong all afternoon. Theoretically, you'd say he'd be feeling better than the other 2?
Well, I would have said that the 2 Belgians would try and start attacking Peter Sagan at some point. Probably not with much more than a couple of kilometres to go, maybe 3 or 4. At the same time, it's usually the person who's got the least left in their legs, who's feeling the pace, feeling the workload, tends to go for the first attack, and unfortunately the first attack very rarely sticks.
So you've got a situation where Van Marken and Van Avermaet are hoping the other guy attacks first, and then it could be stalemate the whole way to the final kilometre.
Yeah, it could very well be, but at the same time you can't let it stop either, because then, like we said, the chasing bunch are going to be there very, very quickly. Although 34 seconds is a fairly comfortable margin to play with at this point, and they will have been made aware of that both by the whiteboard that they have on the motorbike, but also in the radios in their ears, that you got 34 seconds. It's kind of okay, but you can't play around too much.
Can't play around too much, but it's enough to think about going racing, as in trying to get away from another rider and risking the stall that will ensue, and perhaps the opportunity to give away a few seconds to the chasers behind. But Van Avermaet is showing no signs of thinking in those terms at the moment. He goes to the front, and the body language says that he's just putting down as many watts as he dares.
Yeah, well, he's always that kind of a rider who likes the hard racing, and he loves to be on the front and drive it hard. So the fact that he's in this front group here now, it just goes to show that he's had a great winter. He's prepared himself well. He's here with a good base form. Probably not super peaked yet, because obviously Tour of Flanders is going to be more in playing on his mind in a couple of weeks' time, and it's too early to be super sharp. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen here.
Well, we have to wait already, and we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for these riders than we might have expected. And you just sense that it's game over, that just the real drive, the belief, the willingness to make the big effort has gone out of this group. The impetus that energy has just diminished a little bit. You can almost see it, and Luke Rowe, I think, probably senses it. He's on the on the radio and asking for the key information. I tell you what, the news he's going to get isn't going to be what he wants to hear.
No, far from it. It's gone out another 10 seconds, so I think they're going to have to start looking at 4th place now and racing for that. These guys are within 9 kilometers of the finish line, and to bring back 40 seconds is going to take something very, very special, both from these guys up front in terms of them slowing down and starting to play games, and also in terms of the efforts that go into the chase from the group behind.
Sepp van Mark won this race, of course, in 2012. And should he win this afternoon, he'd become the 17th person to win Het Nieuwsblad on more than one occasion. Cannondale didn't manage to win a World Tour race in 2016 at all, so this would be a massive win for them. It would be a massive coup for the Cannondale squad. They really an interesting move to go for Sepp van Mark, to bring him back into the fold. It's where he started his career. Looks like he's comfortable. He's brought a good game right to the beginning of the classic season. He's always thereabouts. Often doesn't get the victory that he might feel that he deserves. This, of course, is a World Tour race now. They've changed the format of the World Tour. They've brought more races into it. This doesn't have quite as many points as the bigger monuments and the races that were already in the World Tour, but still it's been elevated in status.
Yeah, it certainly has been, and like you said, Cannondale and Sepp van Mark really could do with opening their accounts very early on in the season. They have invested an awful lot over the last year now to bring a good classics game to their campaign, and it would be, I think, a good sort of confidence level for them to know that Sepp is going well, he's ready, and he's already now starting to show that he can perform with the best.
Now disc brakes at the front of the peloton, in case you were wondering, and as you can see, well, in the breakaway group there are disc brakes on offer in this race. Though we have, of course, seen some of the teams. I don't remember which. Well, I think Wanty Group Gobert ride exclusively on discs, and not the only squad indeed that do that. Quick Step, Tom Bonin. There, Kane, do we really want to start the disc brake debate with just 6.7 kilometres remaining in Het Nieuwsblad?
Let's take that tomorrow, shall we?
That's for KVK, I think. 46 seconds now, so surely they're home and hosed. It's between the three up front. Surely no one's going to get back to them now, but which one of the three will do it? We're well into the end game of Het Nieuwsblad for 2017, and it has come down to this. A select group of three riders now with almost a minute advantage over the chasing group, which has lost all belief, I think, in recent moments. And now they're starting to argue amongst themselves, and still Greg van Avermaet on the front piles on the pressure and requires Peter Sagan to make a little effort to get back into the wheel. Sepp van Mark too is looking for shelter on the right-hand side of the road. Van Avermaet looks strong, but then all three have looked strong, particularly Peter Sagan, who went to the front and caused the cracks in the peloton round about the time that Tom Bonin, Alexander Kristoff, Brian Kokar and so many other riders were caught in that mass pile-up towards the front of the bunch, with what somewhere between 55 and 60 kilometres to go. I can't remember now. It was a long time ago, but Sagan went to the front, caused the big splits, and they have really paid dividends, because we thought he might have been a bit of hubris. He might have been just showing a little bit too much too early. But I suppose from his point of view, only a win will be of any value here. When you've got world champion stripes on your back, even if you've never won, well, especially I suppose if you've never won Het Nieuwsblad, nothing less than victory will do here. So too for Van Avermaet, the reigning champion, and indeed for Van Mark, a former winner of this race. It's all about first.
It is all about the win here. I don't think any of these guys will be happy with a second or a third place at this particular point in time. But who's going to draw the first straw and go for that attack? Is one of them, I think, will have to. You can't really play certainly against Peter Sagan, who we know even at when he's been flat out like he has been.
Maybe he'll go first.
Maybe he will go first.
Stranger things have happened.
Well, they certainly have. And
well, the two Belgian riders are eyeballing each other. He could just try and pull a fast one. They're not thinking about that just yet. They've got almost a minute advantage and still putting the head down. Looks like still decent efforts.
I think now as well, Peter Sagan will be very aware of that. They have a minute to play with, so he's now backing off the power a bit. Sepp van Marke seems to be going from back wheel to from last wheel to last wheel here.
So Van Mark it is. That is the first one to think about taking it easy. And now the game has begun. We're inside 5 kilometers to go. And Van Mark wanted to sit at the back of that group, but Peter Sagan is not going to allow that. Van Avermaet finds himself on the front, but you know instinctively that there'll be a little bit of soft pedaling about it. It's not full bore. Has a little look over his shoulder, wants to see will Van Mark come through. Now the row begins, and I tell you what, could well be Sagan that tries to take advantage of that. Now down to 4 kilometers with a minute advantage. Who's going to crack first? Who's going to fire first?
Oh, well, who's going to fire first? I think Sepp van Marke is really contemplating. He was trying to sit on the back there. You can see Greg van Avermaet keeping half an eye backwards as well, just to be prepared for that move from Sepp van Marke.
Van Avermaet goes to the front, and he must be feeling that the eyes are boring a hole in the back of his head. He's probably just waiting and waiting and waiting to see will there be a response from behind. Is someone going to try and jump? And he needs to be alive to it, so you know he won't be absolutely flat chat. Wind coming from the left-hand side of the road means they're making their turns from the right, and that's something to consider as they come up to the finish line as well. I can tell you at the finish line it's pretty much a similar situation. Wind from the left. It's the finish that they used last year, and it is a little bit uphill into that finish, a little bit of a twist towards the line, and just that little slight drag, which of course will it'll be tough on so many of the riders as they really start to feel the pinch. So there's big stalls in the group behind, and there'll be a few attacks. Plenty of riders in there. 4th place in Het Nieuwsblad would represent a very, very strong result indeed, and they'll all sprint through, especially in a World Tour race, for every point on offer. Who's going to blink first? Sagan sits at the back of the groups. Looked the strongest for much of the afternoon. Body language has changed a little bit in recent times, but is he trying to hoodwink the 2 Belgian riders? Will there be any sort of national rivalry between Van Avermaet and Sepp van Mark? All 3 in different teams. Yes, and you try and do that. You try and do that at the back of the group, but of course it's not as if the cameras of the world aren't. He just does it in front of Van Avermaet. I suppose they all know that at the very, very least there's going to be a sprint in 2.5 kilometers time. Time to jettison the bottles, and they'll be the nerves will be jangling a little bit at the moment. Legs will be starting to feel a little bit empty, and they're wondering just how much energy is left in the legs to really get a good sprint. A little shake of the thighs there from Peter Sagan. He wants to try and shake some life back into those legs for one big last push. Are they going to wait all the way to the line? I tell you what, the tension is palpable.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Just over 2 kilometers to go here now. Just waiting for that one big move to come from one of these riders. 1:07 back to the group now, so they don't have anything to worry about in terms of getting caught.
All 3 are fast finishers. Peter Sagan has probably won more bunch sprints, big bunch sprints, but as Magnus has pointed out, this is a very different kettle of fish. A small group sprint at the end of 200 kilometers of hard classics racing, well, that's a different thing altogether. Van Mark has tasted victory and tasted glory in Ghent in the past. Van Avermaet, the defending champion, and Peter Sagan going for his first victory in Het Nieuwsblad. Looks like he's going to... Well, is anyone going to come round him at this stage? Van Avermaet does. Well, what's the rule? You don't come round anyone in the last kilometre.
No, if you're in the certainly if you're in the last position here, that's the best place to be. You can see when the other guys are launching. You also got the potential of a surprise moment on the other 2 as well. So interesting to see whether Peter Sagan follows through here.
And Mark goes through. It looks like they're all going to trust their sprint.
And I would be inclined to, if I was certainly Greg van Avermaet and Sepp van Marke, to just really sit on the wheel of Peter Sagan, coming in under the last kilometre.
They're under the kite, just 1,000 metres remaining in Het Nieuwsblad for 2017. Sepp van Mark is in the tactically perfect position at the back of the group. Van Avermaet wants to let the wheel go on Peter Sagan as if to put Van Mark through, and that would probably be a sensible thing to do because it would probably work. It is Peter Sagan seems comfortable and seems confident and seems willing to lead this one out. He's going to keep just enough tempo to make sure they hang on to their advantage. And I suppose sitting to a crawl is probably not the thing to do.
Well, the slower the sprint starts, the better it is for Peter Sagan with his acceleration. So I think he just needs to back it off here now and keep looking backwards, wait for that one big hit. So Van Mark is changing back down the gears, just making sure that he's got a gear small enough to make that initial acceleration and then go through the gears as he starts to sprint.
Yeah, picking your gear for this one is not the easiest thing. It's 200 kilometers in the legs and of course a little bit of a ramp up to the finish line, and as you pointed out, Magnus, they're going to be starting this one from a little bit slower. They're into the barriers now, or into the closing stages, the final 300 meters. Who's going to fire first? Surely it needs to be as long a lead out as possible for the likes of Van Mark or Van Avermaet. It's Van Mark that goes first. Van Mark starts to wind it up. Sagan's alive to it. Van Mark has to go the long way. Van Avermaet gets the advantage there. It's between the two Belgians. Here comes Van Avermaet. Is anyone going to stop him defending the title? But Sagan has not given up yet. Van Mark is out of it. So too is Sagan. It's Greg Van Avermaet. Backs it up. Two finishes in first place in Het Nieuwsblad in successive seasons for the Belgian Greg Van Avermaet of Team BMC. It's a perfect defence, and look what that means to the local man. Look at the excitement from the local crowd and indeed the press as they chase to get on terms with Greg Van Avermaet. No one to touch him. Perfectly placed, perfectly executed sprint, and a perfect conclusion to Het Nieuwsblad 2017 as Trek Segafredo didn't manage to get riders into the lead group. Looks like they're getting up for third on the day, so that's a fourth on the day, I should say. So, well, good news for Michael Scher, I think it is. I'll wait for full confirmation of that. Stuyven missing out too. Looks like Istana squad getting up for fifth on the day, but no doubt about the man that got the win, Greg Van Avermaet. Almost a track sprint at the end of it, and up that hill the legs must have been burning, but even Peter Sagan couldn't get on terms. Perfectly played, perfectly executed by Greg Van Avermaet.
Yeah, it certainly was a real show of strength, and I'm sure that will do an awful lot of good for his confidence as well, knowing that he's on target for super form later on in the year as well, and already now going well. But certainly Peter Sagan looked incredibly strong out there on the road today. Just I think he got that sprint a little bit wrong. Just looked like when he came into that final corner, he messed it up a bit.
Kisses and celebrations all round for Greg Van Avermaet. He's backed up. Back-to-back victories in Het Nieuwsblad for the Belgian rider. And it's a great start to the season. The year of Van Avermaet they call 2016. The Olympic champion.
In a row here at the Omloop at Nieuwsblad. Oh, it's an amazing feeling. I think last year, my year started here as a big victory, and I hope to do the same this year. And it's always nice to come home and to win the first race on my home ground. And yeah, it's just a nice feeling. So many fans, nice and next to the road. And for me, it's the perfect start of the season. With a follow-up in the Tour of Flanders, maybe? Hopefully, it's my biggest goal, but it's a hard race. But if everything goes well, I have a big chance. Thanks. Dankjewel.